Right, so there's two things I've mentioned a lot. It is that I like citrus and that citrus are a complicated mix of species and hybrids of hybrids. And we're going to be starting with a relatively simple one, which is actually probably my favorite citrus in terms of utility, which is the rough lemon, which is Citrus extemburi, which is a hybrid of a citron, which is a large, not very juicy, looks like a lemon but pith all the way down, citrus, and a mandarin, which is the standard sort of satsuma type, but usually more sour in the wild form than in the domesticated form you usually see in the shops. So this is going to be going into a spot where I previously had a Suriname cherry. Unfortunately, that one does seem to have died. It hadn't been great, but it had been alive when the rains first hit, but as I was siding today, getting grass down, I found out it was just a bare dead stalk with no real root life left at all, so I thought it'd be good to replace this. The Dracaena here has also died, as seems to have done the ground cover, so I am going to be giving it a large piece of Dracaena fragrance and some Calico Gingko to keep it company. Second up, today we have another two species hybrid. So this is a hybrid between Citrus medica again, and this time with Citrus hystrix. Now it's probably not the Citrus hystrix I've already planted. In other parts of South Asia there is another form of Citrus hystrix which is sometimes separated into Citrus micrantha, which is probably the parent of this one. That has then got lots of different cultivars, and this is one of those, which is the Mexican lime. Now, unlike a lot of these hybrids, this does usually come true from seed, but not always, which we will talk about later. But this is going to be getting, again, the very standard combination of a Dracaena fragrance, an Aloe and some Calico Gingko as a shelter plant, a prickly thicket around the base of it, and a succulent ground cover and slight toxic barrier to small insects and so forth around it. Third up, although that hybrid of Citrus hystrix with Citrus medica usually breeds true from seed, at least once it didn't, because our third tree is a hybrid of that with another hybrid citrus. And the other hybrid citrus involved was a true lemon, so that's not to be confused with the rough lemon, which is Citrus reticulata, the mandarin, and Citrus medica, the citron. Instead, a true lemon is Citrus medica hybridizing with, I think, a sour orange, which is a Citrus maxima, which is the pomelo, and Citrus reticulata cross itself. So this is a 4 ancestral species involved to produce this particular lime, which is the Tahiti lime or Persian lime. I think it's also called the bear's lime, but I might be mixing that up with one of the others. So this is usually seedless. It's a relatively small, smooth-skinned lime. It's very sort of typical of the lime you will see in shops, and I believe it originally was farmed in sort of Western Asia, so I think around Iran, but I'm not entirely sure, and I know it is quite widely grown all over the sort of citrus growing regions, and it is the most widely grown lime today. It is yet again going to be getting a piece of Dracaena fragrance going to the west of it to shelter it from the afternoon sun. It's also going to be getting a piece of Alocamerone to shelter it from the winter sun, and it's going to be getting some pieces of Calico Gingko all around it to just give it a little bit of ground cover. It's also got some Philanthus growing around here, some one of the native ones which has sprung up, and that should help shelter it a little bit, so I'm hoping this will be a good spot for it to settle in over the rains and then do quite well with a little bit more light than I would usually give a lime, just so it can be a little bit more productive. Finally tonight we have a citrus which fundamentally has 2 parent species. It's a relatively recent hybrid, and it's actually one that I've been avoiding for reasons I can't really put my finger on it. It's just something about its name is just so unimaginative. So this is a Tangelo. There's actually a few types of Tangelo. Generally speaking, they're crosses between mandarin-related citruses and pomelo-related citruses. So tangerine is a mostly mandarin descendant orange type thing, and pomelo is, pomelo. This is the Mignola Tangelo, which is a hybrid between a mandarin and a grapefruit, and a grapefruit is itself a hybrid between a pomelo and an orange is a hybrid between a mandarin and a pomelo. So fundamentally there's only 2 species that fed into this, and it's created something that's supposed to be quite a juicy, slightly sour, loose-skinned thing, not dissimilar to a Nachi, I think. I've never grown one before because, again, just the name, I don't know why. I thought it was some sort of modern fad thing for some reason. It is quite recent. This was, I believe, developed in the US, and I think it was in the 1920s. I'm not entirely sure on that, but it's quite a recent citrus, and it's one I've not tried before. Most of the time, oranges I tend to try and put in light shade, so they get some direct sun, but nothing too intense, especially not in the afternoon, and especially not in the middle of winter when it's a lot drier. But I do try and put them where they will get some direct sun, whereas something like grapefruit, which is higher pomelo, and the pomelo itself, I'm quite happy putting in quite a bit more shade. They tend to do quite well there. And actually mandarins I've often put in relatively shady spots, although the higher mandarin content citruses I've tended to find do like at least morning sun. This one I'm going to be going with that same general model, so this is going quite close to a grape and some more Philanthus, which should help shelter it from the afternoon sun, but it should get some decent morning sun, and in the sort of growing season it should get some direct midday sun if the sun ever comes out, which today it really hasn't. So that's not a direct risk for burning at the moment, but hopefully once it's settled in and been here a couple of years, that will be quite a handy thing to get direct sun during the growing period when it has plenty of water to keep it cool and keep it growing. This is an area which doesn't really get tall because the soil has been quite compacted. It is loosening up here over the last couple of years, but it still doesn't tend to have the growth that a lot of other areas get. So I don't really need a marker plant. It's also quite close to that grape, so it's quite conspicuous. And I'm going to be putting in instead just the ground cover ones, so putting in some Alocaria and some Callistemon just to keep it sheltered, and that brightly coloured Callistemon should keep it quite well marked out too. And that should be everything for tonight, so thank you very much for watching. I hope you have enjoyed it, and if you haven't enjoyed it, thank you for watching anyway. Please tune in again tomorrow because we'll be planting something different. I am not sure what yet, I have a few ideas, but we'll see.